Hey, Marco. Really good seeing you again, buddy. Excited to connect again and to really just teach our fans how you went from the CFO executive role all the way into cash flow and rental properties. I know there's lots of life lessons that people will love to learn from. So, excited just to start there. But before we get into the business world, right, I always like to start with the human element and just to get into, tell us your story. Where were you born? What do you do for fun? Walk us through Marco as a human first.
Great to be on here. Great to see you again. Actually, we met, how long is it? Like a year and a half ago? Almost a year ago.
Yeah, a couple years ago in Arizona.
Yeah, in Arizona at a real estate event. So great to see you again. Great to connect again. So yeah, I'm originally, I still got a little bit of an accent. I'm originally from Germany, was born and raised there. I was 26 years old when I came to the US, which was 2002. I didn't know anybody in the US. I had never been to the US. My English was awful, but I had an opportunity to join a German company as a financial analyst. And I was like, you know what, let's go, let's do it. Definitely was a little bit scary. It definitely was hard the first year or two. You go to another continent, you barely speak the language. Well, you grow with your challenges. So I grew in as a person, and I grew in my job. So over time, I became an internal auditor, I became a controller, and then actually 9 years, almost 10 years into it, I became the first time a chief financial officer for a company in Louisiana, and then was a chief financial officer for the last 10 years of my corporate career. Along the way, in 2016, I actually was unemployed. I lost my job as a CFO. Company had financial issues, highly leveraged. So I ultimately went bankrupt. But I was unemployed for like 3 months at the time. I was in Houston, Texas. There were just not that many jobs for what I was doing. And in that time, I realized how much I depend on my W-2, on my salary. And I was like, I will never depend, I told myself I will never depend on a W-2 again. For 3 months, and in hindsight, it was a blessing in disguise. For 3 months, I really zeroed in on real estate. Learned everything I could, read every book I could, every podcast. I learned as much as I could, meetups, conferences, everything. Yeah, I started buying real estate. Because the goal was initially to generate like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 as residual income through rentals. And in my mind, it was like, okay, if I make $4,000 through rentals, if I ever lose my job again, I'm not going to be worried about it. Just having that peace of mind. Because at the time, it was like, you're a pretty high-flying CFO. Now suddenly you lose your job. It was pretty kick in the gut. Pretty hard kick in the gut. And that's what I did. I found a job, I worked again, but I focused, my priority shifted. So it was not anymore career growth and be a CFO of a bigger company. I still worked hard, but now my focus was any 3 minutes, like learn about real estate, and what's even more important, execute on. Because a lot of people fall in this announced paralysis trap where they think about it and they just need one more piece of information and they need to analyze it and they need another Excel sheet and some other analysis. I think the key is at one point you just hold your nose and you execute. So I started buying rental properties, and then by 2020 I owned 23 rental properties. Wow. And I was able to replace my income. That was my goal. Initially the goal was $3,000 to $4,000, but then it kind of the snowball effect kicked in. Now it's 3, now it's 4, now it's 5, now it's 6, and it gets addictive. One of the good addictions. At one point I was able to replace my income. I quit my corporate job back in September 2020.
How long do you think it took your brain to switch from corporate America to entrepreneur, real estate, getting deals done? How long was that transition?
It was pretty, I stopped basically. I think that's one of the keys is also, because there's a lot of internet gurus out there. They're like, hey, burn the ship, go all in whatsoever. I think that's not the right approach. People have kids, people have mortgages, they have car notes. I think you should build it up. But I was kind of building it up over those 4 or 5 years until I felt confident. Okay, this is all solid. I replaced my income. I'm not going to lower my standard of living. It's not that I suddenly have to eat ramen noodles all day because I want to be a real estate investor. That gave me the peace of mind. It was a pretty smooth transition. It's based from one day you don't go to work anymore and now you work on real estate. But obviously it was the transition part was you have a regular life. Every morning you get up at 6, you walk the dogs, 7:30 you're in the office, and all these things. That's not. So it took me some while to adjust to that. But yeah, other than that, it was pretty smooth.
And then on the personal side, what do you do? What's your trick to when you're getting burned out? What do you do? Like when you're slowing down and you need a break, what does Marco do for fun to come back to normal?
Dogs. I love dogs. I still have one. So walking dogs every day in the morning, in the evening. That kind of gets me out, gets me balanced, gets me sunlight. I love to travel. I just got back from a trip to Europe. Me and my girlfriend, we went to Germany, Czech Republic, Greece, and Albania. So that was pretty
around.
Cool. And prior to that, I mean, at one point I lived the nomad life. So I was like living on the road for a year and a half almost. Did a 6 months road trip. So I lived in the Fort Myers area. So I drove all the way from Fort Myers all across the US to California, and then down the Baja California to Cabo, Mexico. Stayed there with my 2 dogs, stayed there for 2 months, and then drove all the way back. So that's the beauty about real estate, because a lot of people are afraid of, hey, how do you manage the property? Or they want to live close, because a lot of people, when they reach out to me, they want to learn, and they're one of their main concerns is, I want to buy something close to where I live, so I can drive there, I can check up on it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with checking up on your properties once in a while, but I mean, how many times? I mean, I live 30 minutes from like 10, 12 of my properties, and some of them I haven't seen in a year, you know. So you have to learn the processes, you have to be able to delegate, you have to be able to processes put remotely, you know, like how do you collect the rent checks or the rent payments and things like that. So if you put these in place, and while I was in Cabo, I was renovating houses, I had flipped one house while I was in Cabo. You can do all this if you have the right network, if you have the right support system. You can do this business from anywhere.
Cool. Let's get into it. So when you are living in acquisition mode, how do you pick the cities? What are your indicators? What is, like, you know, you bought in many different states. Like what drives you to those markets?
One on a high level is I only invest in landlord friendly states. So there's a mix in the United States. Some states are more tenant friendly, some are more landlord friendly. California, New York, those are more tenant friendly states. What does it mean? If you have to evict somebody, it can take a year and a half to get somebody out. Even though they haven't paid their rent in a year, you still have a hard time to get done. If you invest in landlord friendly states, the whole eviction process is a little bit quicker. I invest in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. In Mississippi, I think it's the shortest. You can within 30 days between filing and having somebody out in non-payment of rent.
Do you prefer single family, condos, apartments, commercial? What do you prefer?
I used to own a lot of multifamily too. At one point, me and a business partner owned about 150 multifamily units. Nothing wrong with multifamily, but multifamily is it's very different. Real estate, everybody thinks, real estate is all the same, but yes, both is about living, but other than that, they have nothing in common. You know, somebody's living there and paying rent. That's the only thing they have in common. But then the valuation, what it's worth, and there's a lot of other things going in. When interest rates went up, it's when we actually sold everything, and the timing was really good. Everything we sold is worth probably like 20, 30% less. So that's one thing about multifamily. Interest rate is a big driver on it. I personally only do single family. I also don't do condos or townhomes. What I don't like about condos and townhomes is the HOAs and the fees. You're not in control. I used to own several, but I sold them. I have one left, but the HOAs keep climbing up every year. And I don't see any improvement, anything different. You know, it's just like, we need a new roof, or we need to paint this or whatsoever. And then you're just not in control of your asset. And the big thing is also, you're not in control, but also, let's say the home is not rented and it takes you a month or 2 to find a tenant. You still pay that HOA. It still hits your cash flow. So I only do single family. It's just something I think is what I feel most confident, most compelling for me.
When you're looking at deals, how do you feel the pipeline? Like, what are the channels that you have developed, that you grow, and that you enjoy? Because a lot of people are chasing a lot of different avenues. What works for you?
When I started, you could still go on Zillow and find a foreclosure at a 30% discount on Zillow. Those days are over, but they might come back actually, but those days are over. So in the beginning, it was literally Zillow. I worked a lot with wholesalers, or still do work with wholesalers. I think it's also important to build a network. So even though I live in Florida, I have a very good network in Mississippi. Not all of state of Mississippi, but that specific area I invest. So also I get deals through that way. You know, people reaching out to me, they know I can perform. They know I can, when I say I buy it, and they know my buy box, what I'm looking for. So mostly what I get today is wholesalers or networking.
Cool. And then talking about going to Mississippi or Alabama, how do you build that support team remotely? Because you want to stay remotely forever. That's the dream, right? So like, how do you build trust? Who do you build the team around? Like, walk us through establishing a new market for you. Like, how does that look like?
I'm the southern part of Alabama, southern part of Mississippi. At one point I lived there, so that definitely helped when we bought these apartments.
Looking for exclusive off-market deals with tenants in place and prepaid rent? Visit sell2rent.com. Earn cash flow and equity from day one.
apartment buildings. I actually decided they were a pretty heavy lift. So me and my business partner decided to move there just to overlook it, which was a good thing we did because we did a substantial profit on it, but it was worth us to be there and really monitor the whole repositioning and upgrading. So that obviously helps if you live there. But also I live in Alabama and I built 15 houses in the Fort Myers area before I even moved, So, and that was basically coming down here, building the network, talking to people, talking to realtors, talking to different contractors, make a good decision. You go with a contractor, it might turn out as a good contractor, it might turn out is not so good contractor, and there's just, with any investment, there's risk, and that's what people need to be aware of. There's risks, there's just no, after this one contractor, he does always an amazing job. He's the cheapest guy. He does the best work. It's just not happening. And sometimes in the beginning, I had one contractor. He was good, but he was not that great. We just had some issues along the way. Then I switched and I found that one contractor was really, really good, So I could buy houses. I went there. I told him what to do. He knew the paint color. He knew what I wanted for the countertops. He knew what I wanted for the tiles. And I came back 4 weeks later and the house was ready, and just some small changes. So you have to invest the time to build it. It's hard to do everything virtually in the beginning, but as soon as it's established, you can do it virtually.
From your experience, who do you think the hardest contract is to make? Is it a lender, a contractor, a realtor, a property manager? Who's the hardest one to find a good one of?
Contractors and property managers. I would have to say probably property managers is even more challenging. There's so many property managers, but I have fired more property managers over the years than, percentage-wise, I think 90% of my property managers at one point I fired. I think that's for me is the biggest challenge. I think contractors is a challenge too, but it's not impossible and you find one. I just found recently one where a guy called me. I had high grass on the house. He called me and said, "Hey, I'm cutting grass. Do you want me to cut your grass?" And I'm like, "Sure, how much is it?" So they give me a quote. It was reasonable. And I said, "What else do you do?" "Oh, well, we do painting, we do this and that." And I said, "I'll just do grass cutting on the side." Okay, all right. So show me some of the pictures you did of the work you did. He sends me. I gave him a job. He did a phenomenal job on that one house. So contractors is a challenge to find the right one. It's not that hard. You find one. Property manager is just being a property manager is just not a grateful job. If you do a good job as a property manager, nobody's gonna say, "Oh, this is phenomenal property manager. He's the best." However, if you do something bad, immediately, "Oh, this guy sucks." I understand it's not easy. Also, if you manage 300 houses, obviously. I love my houses. I care about my houses. I cannot expect somebody managing 300 houses to care about my house the same way as I do. But having said all that, there's a lot of property managers who just don't put in the effort, or they just, the electric wiring needs to be changed. It's $1,000. Okay. Is that the best we can do? That's the only thing we can do. Let me call somebody else. I found somebody who can do it for $300. They just don't have the skin in the game. I encountered a few good ones, but I think property management is one of the harder parts.
Looking at the underwriting side of things, right? Back of the envelope kind of math. You have any tricks or necessities needed in a property for you to do a deal?
Yeah, here's something funny because everybody thinks when they talk to me, people know what I do. You have some ideas. You have an Excel sheet. So they expect me, because as a CFO, I have this elaborate Excel sheet with macros and VLOOKUPs.
Pivot tables.
Numbers just flying all over the place. And I'm like, no, I don't. I have a very simple plus, minus, divided, multiply Excel sheet. And it's basically what I look at is my number one criteria is cash on cash for rental properties, cash on cash return. So ideally, I shoot for 10% cash on cash return. So what does that mean? I buy a house for $200,000. Let's say I don't need any renovation. Or let's say I buy it for $200,000, $40,000 my down payment, 20%, and $10,000 is my renovation. So I'm in for $50,000 on that property. Ideally, this property cash flows about $400. Cash, when I say cash flow, is after principal, interest, taxes, insurance. Cash flows $420. Okay, so that's $5,000 a year, and $5,000 is 10% of the $50,000 invested. So that's a 10% cash on cash return.
To the equity that you invested, you only care about the money
the money I put on the table, not what the house is worth, not what the value it goes up or down. It's just the cash I invested as a percentage of, or the rent as a percentage of the cash that I invested.
So outside of that, any other kind of buy box angles levels? Is you stay below a price point? Do you stay above a rental level? Do you stay in appreciate? Like, walk us through other metrics that you look at when you look at an investment.
I don't like A and I don't like D property. So A is the high end stuff, and one thing you learn is rents and values are not correlated. Okay, so for instance, a house for $200,000 might rent for $2,000, but a house for $400,000 will not rent for $4. It might rent for $3,200 or something. Okay, and then the higher you go,
the less the rent,
the wider the gap gets. And actually, there's a point. I believe in you should own your own house, but there's a point. If I want to live in $1 million house or $2 million house, it's probably better to rent than to own it, because the numbers at one point just make more sense. So I like B and C. When I say B and C, with white collar, blue collar neighborhoods, people living there, they're engineers, car mechanics, truck drivers, something like this. Basically, I look for ideally like 3, 4. I mean, one is a 10%, but ideally it's also somewhere between $300, $400, $500 a month. Because I think even if you make 10% or even if you make 15%, but you get $100 in cash flow, I don't think it's really worth it. I mean, because for me, it's also about you want to was building that income, but you also want to sustain this income, or you want to grow the income, and it's really hard to do that on $100 cash flow properties.
I'm wondering myself, are any of your strategies buy and then refi in a year, or cash out if possible, or do you always try to get the best one possible in the beginning and then let that thing run?
It depends on the deal, but the way I got to where I was is all refi until you die, you know. So it's
take the money out.
It's buying something, put some sweat equity in it. You buy a house for $150, you put $20,000 into it, is worth $220 ideally, you know, and then you refinance, you get the cash that you put in out, ideally, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, and then let it ride. So I do a lot of fix and flip loans, and then turn them into DSCR loans, 30-year fixed DSCR loans. That's kind of my key strategy.
And then I imagine your strategy then is to buy and hold for a long time, or are you flipping a part of your portfolio to get some equity out? Like, what are you doing?
I mostly hold. I refinance, pull out equity. And I think that's one of the things you got to be consistent. So let's say I build, for simplicity, $100,000. I can refinance at 70% now. Now I can pull out $70,000. That's technically, if you buy in Mississippi, that's technically the down payment for 2 houses.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, what you got to do is, I think some people fall in that trap. Oh, I can equity. Now I got the tax-free money and I'm going to buy a new car, or I'm going to go on vacation. You know, I think you got to be consistent. You basically have your assets pay for your assets. So as I refinance, I pull out equity. I use that equity to buy more assets, you know, so my assets buy my assets.
Yeah. And then let's talk about a little bit about operations. So when it comes to tenants, on average, how long are tenants lasting these days in your properties? Are they a year? Are they 2 years? Is it long-term leases? What do you try to do? What's your strategy?
I only do long-term leases. I tried Airbnb a few times. It's not for me. I don't like the seasonality, you know. I owned a cabin in the Smoky Mountains at one point. Yes, the winter months was good and the spring was not so good. And one month you had like $5,000 in rent, another month you had $500. I just don't like. I just like the boring, consistent $2,000 every month. You know,
and then,
so I don't. Yeah.
By long term, are you saying a year or 3 years or what?
One year minimum. I mean, if a tenant wants to do 2 years, I'm not opposed to it. If they want 3 years, well, I'm not opposed to it. But the minimum is 1 year.
On the acquisition side, I know you bought properties from us. There was one in Mississippi, right? So what attracted you to this? It was, you know, it was a state that you liked. It was a long term lease, but what else attracted you to a lease back?